Welcome to That Digital Take. I'm your host, Torri Webster. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to That Digital Take. My guest today is Taylor Frankel, co-founder and chief brand officer of Nudestix. She launched the brand alongside her mom and sister, and over the last decade has helped turn Nudestix into a global beauty staple. Known for its no makeup vibe, the brand has also led the way in creator collabs, working directly with influencers on product development, and even landing a spot in Sofia Richie's wedding glam, which I can't wait to talk about today. Today, we are going to chat about the business of beauty, what makes an influencer collab actually convert, and why the future of beauty is digital first. Taylor, welcome to the pod.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
I'm so excited.
I'm so pumped for this. So Nudestix was obviously ahead of the curve with its minimal, no makeup approach, like I said. What was the original insight or gap that you were solving when you launched Nudestix? Also, it's been so many years that Nudestix has been in the market, but like go back to those OG days. Tell me a bit about the founding story. Yeah.
Well, in let's call it 2012.
Yeah.
I mean, we were all a part of that era, the beauty era, and we all remember the 12-step, if not more, beauty tutorials, the 1 hour, how to create the perfect smoky eye. And at the time, I remember my sister and I would always, talk to each other and say, well, who's wearing all of this makeup that we're seeing on YouTube, on Instagram? And it felt like very much detached from our day-to-day. And we would talk to our friends, we would talk to family. And that was really the inspiration behind this no makeup approach to beauty. It was, at the time, more is more glam was everything. And
So
no
true.
one was talking about less is more beauty, or let's call it lifestyle or everyday beauty.
And also clean beauty really back then that wasn't even a term yet.
Clean beauty was not a term.
Right.
Which is so funny because even today, clean isn't necessarily a regulated term, but it's it's very much a buzzy marketing term that many brands use.
Right.
Which definitely has weight to it, but we can get into that a little bit later. So it was about clean, effortless beauty, minimal makeup for the everyday woman who just wants to look like the best version of herself. And it really was never about age, although my sister and I at the time were 14 and 17.
Just crazy. Like to be that young with that type of like entrepreneurial, I mean, I'm sure you get it from your mom, but that type of entrepreneurial spirit at that age is kind of unheard of.
Honestly, yeah, it definitely is. Both my parents growing up were entrepreneurs. They had their own businesses. And so we really saw it firsthand. And so being an entrepreneur was a thing. Whether or not it was the word entrepreneur, it was just the idea of starting your own business didn't seem as far-fetched.
Yeah.
So that's...
You're like, this is just what my family does.
Yeah,
Why
we just
not?
start businesses. I guess that's kind of what you do in life.
Take the risks. Why not?
Yeah. And it is really risky for sure. And obviously having our mom as a co-founder and her having businesses or a business in the past was incredibly instrumental to building our business and getting it off the ground, especially at that time. So she was really trusting our vision. She said, wait a second, you guys are onto something. There is really a gap in the market for something that is speaking to, let's say let's call her the modern day woman.
Yeah.
And that's what really led to Nudestix. So like you mentioned, clean, minimalist beauty, in all stick formats, because we wanted beauty to be easy. We didn't want the complicated steps, the compacts, the brushes, and everything really felt like our mother's or grandmother's makeup. It was like the oversized bags. And so we said out with the overflowing bags and compacts and all these steps and tools, and in with just really easy to use sticks and pencils, where the tips for use at the time and still are, you draw and you smudge. Use your fingers, back to basics. So that's what really,
it's really also inspiring and quite iconic that the sentiments of the brand really haven't changed. And I feel like that speaks to like how powerful the original vision was, because now we're 10 plus years later and it all still holds up. And like that, I feel like, is the foundation of a successful business. It's like, this is not a problem you were solving and then turning around and being like, okay, well now we have to re-innovate. It's like, no, year over year, like this remains our mission. This remains, we get to like formulate differently or come up with new exciting colors or palettes or whatever it is, but the core of the brand remains. Like, has that been hard for you guys, or like an easy transition?
I think it's been quite easy, honestly, because we were so clear. It is challenging to not get distracted because there are so many beauty brands, as we know, who have entered the space, especially the clean beauty minimalist space, let's say in the past 3 to 5 years. but we are so passionate about what we do every single day. And I think that there's a difference between changing your brand ethos and doing slight refreshes or refining to ensure that you're always very clear on your point of differentiation. And I think after 10 years, we're actually going through that right now. After 10 years, you kind of need to do it because
it's a brand refresh.
It's a brand refresh. You know, the community evolves, the industry evolves, the way we create content evolves, and the competitor landscape evolves. So you need to evolve with it, but you also can't alienate your existing customer.
Audience. And that's every business. Like even as a creator, it's like if you're not reinventing yourself every couple of years or coming up with a new thing or building something new, like, it gets a bit stale. Like no matter what, everyone has to be innovative and exciting and looking forward. Okay, we'll love that. How did launching a beauty brand as a young founder and with your mom and sister, the family affair of it all, shape the brand's authenticity and tone? Like I love your mom's previous story. Maybe talk a little bit about that because she had so much experience in the beauty industry before even working on Nudestix.
Yeah. So my mom is a beauty engineer, literally. So she graduated from UFT here in Toronto in the chemical engineering program. And right out of university, she was working for a cosmetic supplier and she fell in love. She fell in love with the beauty space, the cosmetic space. She was always super creative. I think she was one out of like 5 women in her engineering class. And that from there, she actually got a job with MAC. We all know MAC, a Toronto legendary brand. And she worked alongside the original founders, Frank and Frank, who were both artists. And she learned artistry. They would say you cannot develop products for artists if you do not know what they need and how they use the products. So every single developer had to go through artistry training. And then with the relationships she made from MAC and a few partners there, she started a brand called Cover Effects, which is very much a complexion-focused brand. So less artistry and more about complexion, foundations. They were probably one of the first next to MAC to have the 40 shades of complexion.
Yeah, I remember that. They had such a broad range, which was crazy.
Yeah, and it was like incredibly full coverage because their audience, when they first launched, they launched out of a dermatology clinic and they were creating products quite literally for their patients who had, whether it was acne, severe acne, vitiligo, burn victims. And so they needed that really intense coverage. And from there, she built it, for about 12 or so years with, a variety of partners.
So crazy.
And then she decided to kind of exit for a bit. But yeah, her background is incredibly, robust in beauty. And that was how we grew up. My sister and I, what did we talk about at the dinner table growing up? We would talk about beauty and products and we kind of just all loved
it's so amazing. I love the family affair of it all. Yeah. What's something about Nudestix in the early days that people wouldn't expect from a now global brand? Like what was the OG years? What did they feel like to you as a founder?
I mean, they were super scrappy. I think every founder or entrepreneur, anyone who's starting a business can attest to this, but like, it's not glamorous, right? You're like, taking 12-hour flights. As soon as you land, you're heading to meetings and, you are not sleeping. When we were creating content, it was literally in our boardroom and we were taking content on our iPhone, which is interesting because I think we're now back to that.
I know. It's weird how like nobody loves high production quality anymore. No. Like what's that about?
No, I also feel like the algorithm hates it.
Yeah. Although I will fight back on this because in very recent times, I feel like very high quality content is performing well. So I'm like, sometimes I just don't even know anymore. I've lost touch.
But. Yeah. It's just like this trial and error.
It is.
And sometimes it hits but it was very grassroots. It's funny because even before we actually had product or we launched any retailer, I would be taking content just of boxes and like our basement as our warehouse and our kitchen table was our meeting room.
Wow.
And so it was very much like the typical kind of startup feeling.
Yeah.
But it's with your family and in your family home. So when my sister and I were in high school, and that was when we started the business, every Sunday would be kind of like our Nudestix day. And it would
I can't believe you were in high school doing this. That's just crazy to me.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. In hindsight, it's kind of, it's insane. But at the time, I think we just were super passionate. We loved the space and we were all working together, which was kind of fun. Like you kind of had these moments where you were able to just like be creative with your family, but then also kind of work towards something that was really special and
a common
exciting.
goal.
Yeah.
As the chief brand officer now, how do you balance staying true to the Nudestix DNA, which is kind of what we were chatting about at the beginning, while also staying on trend and also staying kind of, with the brand moving forward in the right direction?
Yeah.
Like, what are the tools? What are the actual things that you guys put into practice to make sure that you're like, we're the cool brand at Sephora? It's hard.
It's so hard because I do think that sometimes cool is synonymous with like new and fresh.
Sure. Yeah.
Because when you're a new brand, everything is kind of like, whoa, this is cool. This is new. This is exciting.
Yeah.
Everyone loves the shiny new toy. So in North America in particular, that's been a challenge.
So is that true? Like, I'd love, you probably have so much more data on this, but I'm actually a customer that kind of prides myself more on loyalty. Maybe it's the Leo in me. Maybe it's just, I don't know, the way I came up, but I'm much more keen to just buy the same things I know and love versus actually going for the shiny new toy.
Yeah.
But is there data that shows, as like a Canadian consumer, that people are more excited about like the new brand versus like the more heritage brands or the brands that have been around for a while?
Yeah. I think a lot of younger consumers are less loyal. I think
True. Gen Z, man.
Gen
I talk
Z.
shit about them on this podcast every day, literally.
Okay, no.
No, I'm kidding. But I kind of do. Like, I have beef with Gen Z because they ain't loyal, man.
They're not loyal. And listen, when you're younger, you also grew up, when you're younger and you grow up with social media, like you do have a very short attention span.
Totally.
And you want to be in it, right? You want to know what's good. You want to know what's cool. And so you're going to look at what your friends are using and you're going to look on social media, what your favorite influencer is using. And you're going to be like, oh, I want that because that makes me feel
That
like
is
I'm
the thing.
I'm in this kind of group. So I do think that Gen Z in particular, like loves the shiny new toy, but if there is data specifically on like the millennial Gen X consumer who's like loyal, tried and true, this works for me, I'm not going to change. In order to change their routine, it takes a really,
stellar product.
Yeah.
Something has to really shock me or be like what's an example? The Dior bronzer. That's one thing I probably spent $85 on this month because all of the uproar on TikTok. And I love, this is so bad because I know it's probably not, it's actually definitely not clean because of the fragrance in it, but I like a scented sometimes like bronzer, just really gives summer to me. So people were talking about the scent on TikTok and I was like, okay, I'm going to buy this like $80 bronzer or whatever. But it does take something pretty like special or funky or new or a lot of chat around it for me to actually go out to buy something.
Exactly. And I do think like there are heritage brands and brands that have been around for 20 plus years or 10 plus years that could reinvent themselves or launch a product and create this insane cool campaign that resonates with a new audience. And, when that hits, it's magical and it's incredible. So yeah, there is this fine balance between staying true to your brand, but then also doing things that are a little outside the box and are relevant to ensure that you're always speaking to not just your existing customer, but a net new customer. Because in order to scale, there's only so many nudies that one person could buy, right?
Right.
So let's say you're a diehard Nudestix fan.
Full collection.
You have the full collection.
Right.
You're loyal. You're going to continue to buy the products, but you still need to speak to a new customer always and broaden your reach. So I would say we're kind of in that phase right now. Like it's just been a little bit more challenging to reach the new audience. I think generally the cost of acquisition has become a lot more expensive to reach the new customer.
And when you say cost of acquisition, you mean to get one net new customer.
Correct.
That's crazy.
Yes. Yeah. It's really tough. Obviously, there's different tactics to do it. There's the influencer route.
Yeah.
There's the paid media route.
Right.
There's
traditional media.
Traditional media. There's I'm not going to say so many ways, but like, the standard approaches. But I do think that because there's so many brands and consumers are continuously getting smarter, it's harder to sell to them.
Yeah.
So,
and people really, want to put their money in places that they feel they're getting something out of it now.
Correct.
I think like what $30 was worth in makeup 10 years ago is very different than what $30 of makeup is worth now.
1,000%.
Also, back then I was like in Shoppers Drug Mart, like getting 15 items for $30. I was like, that was getting a steal. Like
exactly.
Even just the price of makeup has gone up.
Yes. And so you demonstrating value is huge. And then also, I do think that there's this element of dupe culture that is like rampant. And so if you don't add value, even from just a brand perspective, like what's stopping a customer to say, oh, well, I don't resonate with this brand, or, you know, the brand isn't strong enough for me. Like I'm just going to go and get the same product, or the perceived same product. Probably the quality is not the same. Maybe, you know, the packaging is different. It's maybe not, you know, as performance driven, or the ingredients are, you know, not as great.
Yeah.
But you're getting, you know, a similar-ish product. Yeah. So that's also been a little bit of, that's a challenge specifically for brands that really lean on their brands, if that makes sense. Yeah.
And also
lean on their brand.
Yeah, it does feel like makeup and fashion really get the brunt of that. Like, especially with TikTok dupe culture and being like, well, you could have this that's $60 or this that's $5. And you have people like pitting brands against each other based on price. Like, yeah, wow. It's stressful. Okay.
Yeah.
So it feels like you've worked with beauty influencers from day one, which I love. What makes a Nudestix ambassador truly on brand to you? Like you feel like someone that's always understood social, always understood digital and influencer, but what makes someone truly like Nudestix on brand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, one is authenticity. I mean, we've worked with you before.
Yeah.
And I think it is really important to identify creators that have genuinely loved and used the products before. I think it's very odd to like pay a creator
shove it down someone's throat.
Yeah, and they've never talked about it on their feed before. Like the customer, their community is going to say, okay, well, this is suspicious, you know?
Yeah.
This doesn't feel real.
Totally.
So that's number one. And then I think they have to add like a certain, you know, they have to add value in a way that maybe like you can't as a brand.
Totally.
So whether it's a makeup artist who adds the value of like technique and artistry and education, whether it's, you know, someone who just speaks to a community that might be different than your existing community, a broader community. As an example, you might say, okay, well, I need to, you know, hit a certain market, or, you know, I want someone who's speaking to a different demo. I think that's obviously from like an analytical perspective
makes
important.
Total sense. Yeah.
And then someone who also like understands the vibe. Like for us, we're not a more is more brand, right? We're definitely more of a minimalist brand when it comes to how we approach artistry.
Absolutely.
But still like artistry, right? Like still performance products where you can still like see the makeup.
For sure.
But yeah, so we're not necessarily going to work with someone who's going to create a YouTube video that, you know, where you need 20 million
25 steps.
And,
yeah.
So
I totally get that.
Yeah.
So it's like checking off small little things on the list.
Yeah.
Which platform do you find now is the biggest driver of brand awareness for Nudestix today? And also, has that shifted for you guys over time?
Like social platform.
Yeah. I know you're like an Instagram girly, I feel. I mean, it's the millennial in us.
I know.
We're like,
I can't.
IG.
I love Instagram.
Yeah.
I used to hate. I go back and forth for TikTok. Sometimes I hate it, and sometimes I love it.
Okay.
I'm in my era, I think, of hating it right now.
Okay, fair. I'm in my era of loving it right now.
Interesting. I'm so curious. Why are you loving it right now?
Just like when I'm up, I'm up. It's like I work in the stock market. So I'm like, when the views are up, I'm in. I'm like, I love you, TikTok.
Right?
But like when I'm in the dumps with TikTok is when I feel like I'm really not understanding the algorithm. But then when I'm like vibing is like when I feel like I get what's going on in the algorithm and I can like make videos perform, which makes me feel good.
I totally get that. I think TikTok can be super discouraging. The one thing I do like about it is that you don't necessarily need to have a certain amount of followers in order to get the views.
1000%.
So if you create really good content,
it works.
Like it works. Versus Instagram, I find that the algorithm does kind of like stop you a little bit if you don't. I also find on Instagram, I don't know about you, but it's become a lot harder to gain followers.
Yeah, 100%. It's harder to grow. It feels a lot easier to grow on a platform like TikTok.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you guys, other than like, are you exploring Substack or any of these other new exciting platforms, I guess, that are coming out?
We just launched a Substack account. We don't actually have any content on it yet, but we have our handle.
It's crazy how it demands like constant evolution, eh? Like we just constantly have to be like, okay, well now I guess I'm a blogger again, even though I left this era 10 years ago.
Right?
It just seems nuts, but yeah.
It's a lot. I think, you know, I'm in the camp of like, there's only so much content you can possibly create. I do think there's also, you have the ability to repurpose content, or that's what I love about even podcasts is like you can create this long form podcast, but then you can cut it down to a reel or a TikTok video.
Completely.
Maybe you could even syndicate it into a Substack. Like
Yeah.
how can you take a piece of content and really sweat it as much as possible?
Cross promotion.
Yeah.
Totally.
I love doing that.
Yeah.
But it needs to be right. It needs to be done well.
I also think if you're doing something well, focus on that. I do think there's this dilution of content creation now where because we're expected to be on every platform in a million different ways, it's almost all just diluted versus like focusing on what you do really well and then just putting that on one or two platforms.
Yeah.
At least that's my POV.
Yeah, I agree. And I speak to a lot of influencer friends of mine, like Alana Davison as an example.
Totally.
Love
Alana.
We love you, Alana. She should be on X.
Yeah.
But she is a YouTube girly true and true.
Yeah.
And she'll always say that. She'll say, listen, like, I'm going to do the TikTok, I'll do the Instagram, but like where my community is, like, I love my YouTube. And so I do think that there's something to be said for, you know, those platforms where your communities are at and where they're watching your content. So yeah, and it's okay to toggle and try new things, but I also think there's certain platforms that you kind of know are trustworthy, you know, like YouTube and Instagram, you kind of know they're going to be there, like they're good to you.
Yeah, that's true. TikTok feels like the one, it's like a bad ex-boyfriend. Like it's just like, I love you a little bit, but also like maybe just sometimes goodbye.
Right?
Yeah.
You're like, I also refer to TikTok as the Gen Z mindset because it's not loyal whatsoever.
It's so fast. It's so fast. Like you're hot one day, you're not the next. It's really hard on the ego, but it's really fun when things are working. Like, and when you see the conversion, I do feel like TikTok is an insanely powerful conversion tool. At least it's been in my past with previous brands and the data that I have. I'm like, it's been crazy to see like the way it's been able to like transform businesses. Like I think about one of the first videos that I did for a spa here in Toronto, and the video went like mega viral, and she literally called me crying, was like, you've like transformed my business.
Amazing.
Like, and it's crazy when you have those experiences because you're like, okay, these are real people on the back end. This is not just like a million random views. It's like, no, these are a million people that likely live in the GTA, are very hyper targeted to this market, want to try this facial, and like can really transform someone's life. So in that way, I'm like, I love you, TikTok. But yeah, as a creator and the way that the platform like delivers me highs and lows is very stressful.
1000%.
Yeah.
And what I love about TikTok, sorry if we're
now we're just gonna
talk about TikTok. Is that it's a great experimentation platform.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, but like I still get anxiety about posting on Instagram.
Oh, do you?
I do. And I always like to test things on TikTok to see if it'll hit. Yeah. Often if it hits on TikTok, I'm like, I'm very confident that it will hit on Reels. Instagram. Yeah. So that's a great way to kind of use the platform too. And like, I don't feel guilty like posting like 5 videos in a row on TikTok.
Me neither. It does feel like dumping on there is completely fine versus you're right. Like on Instagram, I'd be way more specific about like, oh, I would never post more than like one reel and like a sitting, you know, like you wouldn't go crazy, but that's so funny. Can you share a campaign that you've worked on that went surprisingly well, or the opposite, very much flopped on either TikTok or Instagram? What did that teach you? What did that experience teach you?
A specific campaign.
Either one that like rocked your world and was like this really hit, or one that maybe flopped and you were like, okay, this is what we learned.
Yeah. I mean, I'll talk to our spring campaign this year.
Yeah.
So we launched an extension of blushes. And we tried to be a little bit more playful. So it was a little bit more pink, and it was all about like this candy girl makeup aesthetic, and very on trend, actually. Like the pink blush, we identify these trends like the year prior.
Which is crazy. I don't know how you've come up with trends a year before, but amazing work.
Yeah, and most of it is, you know, you look at fashion, you look at runway, you look at trend reports. And so we were very confident that like the color story was trending.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a lot more vibrant than our traditional kind of like Nudestix campaigns, right? It was a little bit more playful and colorful. And I just didn't think our community was as obsessed as they had been in the past. Although our nudies category is always like a hit and a bestseller.
Totally.
I do think that kind of the vibrancy and maybe the playfulness alienated some of our existing customers. So although maybe we were trying to, you know, tap into more of like that Gen Z. Right. I think our core millennial audience was like,
oh, that's so bright. Like I would go for something more like muted or something more everyday.
Exactly.
Right.
So that was a really good learning. And then we launched a campaign in fall of last year for our stacks. And it was the magnetic components.
Yes. Yeah.
That really hit.
Yeah. People loved that on TikTok. Also just the visual of it. Like it's so like fun, right? Like,
yeah, they really love the component. I think the campaign was great. I think the lesson with that too is when we think about campaigns, we always think about this 360 approach. So it's not just you're launching this campaign on social, but it's like, how does it hit at store level? How does it hit from an influencer perspective? So if you think about influencers opening up packages, right? You want someone to open up a package and show it on social at the same time that you're launching your campaign on your owned platform.
Right.
And the same time that it launches at stores. So you have to try and time everything.
So it's actually happening. There's so many times where I've been sent product that I'm like, legitimately, this is not available. This is not available for purchase, not available for anyone to buy. So what? I'm just the
only
asshole that gets to talk about. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, that's so unfair to the customer.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the other piece of this that is so apparent to everyone now, which is that the customer is tired. The customer is tired of like everybody else getting gifted the product or gifted the thing or getting that special experience. It's like there has to be this shift back to the customer being the more important piece of this over the influencer
1000%.
Getting like all of this product and all this stuff. A bit of an aside, but like definitely real.
Yeah.
However, to your point, I get that the story has to all happen at the same time.
Yeah, but I think you're right. I do think customers, you know, in their mind, they're like, okay, well, I spend like hundreds and thousands of dollars on these brands, but yet I feel like I'm not reaping any of the benefits of that.
1000%.
And so I do think that there is this community, there's this effort across brands to like really tap into what their community wants and also give back to that.
Yeah.
Which we've been kind of we've always been a very community first brand. So whether it's doing events and integrating community in that, and tapping into them in terms of like what they want to see from a product perspective.
But it's like almost demanding even more than before.
For sure.
Like it feels like a shift in a good way away from like mass influencer consumption versus like making it more about the customer, which I think is like the right twist.
Yeah, exactly. Because, you know, and I also think that we're in this era of, not to say that everyone's an influencer, but I do think that like everyone is, right? Like everyone has a social platform.
If you've got even 1,000 followers, you're an influencer.
Exactly.
Like, I don't even think that influencer has to do with followers anymore. Like I meet people now and I'm just like, oh my God, like I'm influenced by them. Like I just feel like there's this new era of just like, if someone has that je ne sais quoi. Like I met this girl actually G Beauty. Do you know the brand G Beauty? So I met the founder the other day and I was just like, this is the chicest woman I've ever met in my life. Like I just was like blown away. And now I need a Bulgari watch because she was wearing this Bulgari. Like it's just crazy what people will influence you. Like you're like, this is so cool. Anyways, such an aside.
No, but it's so true. Yeah.
It's so true. It's so true. And everyone is an influencer. Wait, but what were you going to say? Because everyone's an influencer, but what was the piece to that?
What was I going to say? No, I think everyone's an influencer to a certain extent. And I think that you just don't know what's going to hit. Like there could be people who, you know, are your customers or maybe aspiring influencers or content creators and, you know, but they're still deemed community.
Yeah.
But you know, they could post on TikTok and who knows, and
it pops off.
It could pop off.
Totally.
So I think that a lot of the platforms now are, you know, allowing everyone to kind of have that opportunity. And I do think like just the creator economy is continuously broadening and it's a real career. I mean, you know, you've done it for 10 plus years. Like, it's not easy. I think people have this misconception.
It's the same as the founder story though, right?
Yeah.
It's like everyone can look at a brand founder and be like, wow, glamorous, fabulous life, which it is in one category. But there is, of course, a whole other and that's the same as influencer. It's like, yes, there is glamour and yes, there is perks and like special experiences, but there's like a complete other side of the industry that's tough.
Yeah. I feel like you talk about this a lot, which I love, but like really that business side of being an influencer. And it is very strategic, like the brands that you work with, the content that you create, like there's always a reason behind how you're talking about something. Like you don't, the goal is that the one who's viewing on the other side does not know that.
Yeah.
Right?
True. True.
Or they might still know it and be totally
okay
cool with it.
Yeah.
But I do think that if you're a viewer and you're watching a piece of content from an influencer, you know, there's a reason behind why they're creating a content. You might say, oh, well, this influencer I'm following all of a sudden started talking about home goods. Okay, cool. But in that creators, influencers' head. They're like, okay, well, I'm strategically trying to get a partner
and I'm moving or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I've been talking about this actually a lot behind the scenes. I don't think I've mentioned it on the pod yet, but this idea that like perception can sometimes be more powerful than what's actually going on. That's said for brands. That's true for influencers. Like positioning and perception is very important. Like a lot of like how there is so much strategy to it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like I think that people think that influencers are just throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks. And part of that may be true. Yeah. But I do think the other side of it is people that have been doing this a long time, there is strategy and it's thought out and it's brand building and it's long-term and it's collaborative and it's all of these things. But yeah, I mean, listen, everyone wants to be an influencer. I'm like, okay, then do it.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on. We it's so easy to jump into so many different topics. Do you think brands need to be on every single platform, or is it smarter to just double down where you're winning?
I do think that every platform serves a different purpose. So if I think about Instagram, I look at Instagram now as like this very almost curated, call it a magazine of your brand. So most millennials or Gen Z, I'm gonna speak on behalf of millennials right now, actually. But like I do think most people, instead of going on Google and searching for a brand, they are going on Instagram. Yeah. So they want to see the portfolio that the brand has to offer. You know, maybe there's tutorials or just like beautiful brand aesthetic imagery that they're going to. And that's the first step to, do I resonate with this brand or do I not? Yeah. Once they go to Instagram, they're like, okay, well, maybe I do want to learn a little bit more, see like the authentic side of it, or I want to look at more UGC content. So then they're going to go to Instagram. Then they're going to go to TikTok. Right. I do think YouTube for me is less brand, although we do have, sorry, I meant YouTube. Did I say YouTube?
YouTube. Okay. Yeah.
YouTube for me is less brand, but someone's going to search YouTube to see like testimonials and like what.
Yeah. It feels like the how-to platform.
Exactly.
Like when you really want to put something to the test, you're like, okay, I'm going to watch this and figure out how to like specifically use this blush or where to place it or what, you know.
Exactly. So yeah, I do think that every platform serves a purpose and I do think you need to be on every platform. I do think that I think that depending on your brand positioning, you might use them slightly different. So if you're like a premium or prestige brand, you might not have your own TikTok page set up, or you might not have a TikTok
shop page. It's shocking how many
page.
Brands don't have, like how many like I guess luxury brands. Like I don't think like Chanel is like on TikTok, right?
Yeah, I don't think like they have like a little mascot on TikTok.
I know.
You know, I don't know if someone on their social team is
like
dancing.
A Duolingo like type. I actually love their channel. But that's the thing, the brands that can lean in, like there is something to be said about, with social media at least, it feels like the less you take yourself seriously, the better. Like the more it performs. Like that is the whole thing. Like brands being able to laugh at themselves and like play into the jokes a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that brands do it in a way that works for them. Yeah. Right? Like if you're, again, it all comes back to who is your audience. Like I do think that if we're like overly, you know, like juvenile on TikTok, a millennial who's seeing that, or a Gen X might say, oh, well, maybe this brand isn't for me.
It's like a bit isolating.
Yeah. So I do think that there's ways to play on it that feel right for you. And I also think that TikTok definitely likes to stir up controversy. So I think like a lot of things that hit on TikTok is tea.
I know, which is a little bit disappointing because I agree with that. I feel like the people that are like obsessed with controversy love TikTok for that reason. Yeah. And I've never built my brand that way in the 10 years that I've done this. I just don't really believe in it at all, actually. It's not in the DNA of what I've built. Yeah. And it's hard because people will be like, oh, well, if you do the video that like where you talk about that really controversial thing, it'll hit. And I'm like, but I don't want to be known for that. Like that's not what, and that's the same for brands. Like why would you as a brand want to be positioning in the drama? Like that just feels so distasteful in a way. I don't know.
I'm aligned with that. And I don't know if it's a Canadian mindset.
I know. Maybe we're like, that's why we'd be so much bigger if we just like leaned in. Everyone in the US is like build their brands off of drama.
I know. There's something to be said about kind of like, you know, like if I think about even myself, like I'll go into the comments immediately. Like if I see a video that has a little bit of a clickbait moment, like I'm immediately going and reading all of the comments. Same. So I understand like the human need and desire to like want to know what's going on. Like we're so nosy.
So nosy. Did you see Avery Woods deleted all? Are you in on this lore? the Avery Woods on TikTok and she's deleted all her videos now?
No.
Like, oh, okay.
I need
it's
to
just
know.
crazy,
I need
but
to
this
know.
is what I mean. Like I get in these deep dives of like TikTok drama and I'm like, I gotta pull myself out of this. Like this is crazy town.
I know. It's very easy to get obsessed. I feel like people who love TikTok tea are the same people who also love like reality TV.
Yeah.
Not to say there's anything wrong with that.
No, but it's like I just want to keep my side of the street clean. Like I just don't want to participate, I guess.
Yeah. I think it's, you know, for me, I have a personality where I can be really consumed by things like that.
Yeah.
So I know that if I give myself a little bit, it's going to just consume every part of me. So I try to take a step back and like not be, it's kind of like this all or nothing, right? Like some people can step in a little bit, like enjoy it and then like not think about it.
Yeah.
But I'm not that person.
So you're like, I have to remove myself.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about influencers building their own beauty brands, which is like such a lore. Like we've obviously seen the $1 billion deal with Hailey Bieber. What advice would you give to creators that are thinking about potentially doing it? And what do you wish they understood more about being a founder or on the actual development side of a product? Because I feel like so many influencers will just like throw their name on something. But like what does that look like for you on the back end? Or what advice would you give?
Yeah. Specifically for creators wanting to launch brands or products or with brands.
No, not with brands, like creating their own. Like if it was like a road or like, you know, a Summer Fridays, like something like that.
Yeah. I would say that it is, it's a marathon. I feel like that's very cliche to say. It's a marathon, not a race, but it's very true. I do think that there are definite unicorn examples like Hailey Bieber, and not to say that she didn't work incredibly hard, because it is incredibly hard to do what her and her team built in 5 years.
Yeah, it's fast, very fast.
It's very fast. I do think that she was very authentic in the way she launched her brand. I think they were incredibly smart with like the build up to her launch as well, like really putting her in the expert chair or putting her next to people who were experts in that category, in the skincare category. But I think that there is this kind of, I think with these celebrity brands, a lot of people think, oh, well, I could be like the face and not have to do anything. But as we mentioned, consumers are incredibly smart, and if it doesn't feel authentic, it's not going to hit. So we've seen a lot of celebrity or influencer brands just flop completely.
Didn't JLo have something at one point that just the internet did not love?
They did not love it. It completely flopped. I think it was in Sephora for maybe a year.
Yeah.
So I think you have to be in it. You're in it, you're invested in it, you're invested in this business, and you have to think of it as this is not going to be an overnight success. And I think the one thing as a founder that you kind of have to get used to if you haven't done it before is like, you're kind of doing a little bit of everything. Like you might be carrying boxes for an event, and you also might be going to the glamorous, beautiful trips or events with influencers. Like you have to have this mindset of like,
but you also might be getting the coffee for everyone on Monday morning.
Exactly. And having these tough conversations. So,
it's like you're HR, you're a producer, you are a creative director, you're product dev, you're literally everything.
You're literally everything. Yeah. I do think that as a founder, or if you're an influencer starting a brand, you really have to commit to like, how do I say this?
I've heard this whole quote and I wonder if you resonate with it, but basically saying like, if you don't want this brand more than you want to breathe, you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Basically meaning like, if you are not fully invested, living, breathing for this brand, you shouldn't do it, because it's so much work. It's so expensive. It's so time consuming. Like you said, it's a marathon, not a sprint. You're looking years ahead down the line. Even if you do sell, if you're not, you're looking at your life.
Yeah.
So it's just like, if you're not fully committed, don't do it. And I think too many people now maybe are a little overzealous or even overconfident and think, oh, it must be easy. I can just launch on TikTok and it's all good. It's like, well, no, like there's a lot of time and development and money that goes into making a brand what it is.
1000%. It's incredibly expensive. I will say the one benefit, obviously being an influencer or a celebrity, when you launch a brand, you have followers, right? Like we just talked about the cost of acquisition of having getting your product or getting your brand in front of customers. Like that's a very challenging and expensive thing to do. So if you have that just at launch, like that's incredible.
Right.
But then you have to prove to them that you earned this spot. You earned the rights to build a business. You earned the rights to build a brand, because the first thing that, whether it's industry or customers, will say, well, what gives you Like, why do you think that you can do this? Right? Like, what credibility have you earned in this space? So I think you need to spend a lot of time even before launching your business, because I do think for whatever reason, influencers or creators or celebrities are always, people are always going to extract and going to try and unfortunately kind of tear
people
you down.
Yeah.
And so you need to work really hard on developing the story and the authentic story that this is why I'm doing this. This is why I'm creating this product, because I felt there was a gap, or because I've tried a million products, or because I've struggled with this. It's similar to any founder, right? There's a problem and there's a solution. And you need to be willing to tell that story yourself and authentically.
Very true.
So yeah, it's definitely not, I think that the Hailey Bieber story is incredible, but it's definitely not commonplace. It's incredibly hard to build a business, and it's incredibly hard
it's like,
to sell a business.
Sorry, we ain't all Hailey Bieber, and we will not all have this $1 billion deal.
No.
Yeah. Okay, quickly, because I feel like the other piece of this, though, is that you guys specifically at Nudestix have been amazing at doing, I guess let's call them co-collabs, like where you will bring influencers in to your world at Nudestix and kind of be able to build something with them. So we have like the Atlantarama Picante example,
The best.
Glamzilla. We have Kevin Kodra. I'm wearing that beautiful bubble on the tops of my
so
cheeks
good.
today. I forget the name of Bubba. Was it
Bubba.
Bubba. Okay, beautiful. Love Kev. But yeah, so you guys were very also unique in that way. I feel like that's a different business model and not something that every beauty brand obviously offers. That's a unique like offering that you guys are doing with your partners. How did that come about, and how has that been either like successful or a learning for you guys as a brand?
Yeah. I mean, all of our partnerships were very authentic.
Yeah.
And if you look at even Alana, like before we launched the first Picante shade with her, we had done a kit with her. I'd known her for years. She had authentically used Nudestix forever. And it was very organic. And she actually, when we were talking about like, okay, can we do something together? Like she came to us and she was like, listen, like there is no true orange blush on the market.
Wow.
And we kind of went in the kitchen together, and same thing with Glamzilla, Stephanie, where we had been working with her for many years. She had used the products organically. And then so her community knew that she loved the brand.
Yeah.
And we got in the kitchen and she really created something that she felt was missing. And same thing with Kevin, where he was our global makeup artist first. And then we went in the kitchen and he was actually organically in his videos mixing a shade called Magenta Magic and Picante.
Oh.
And so he would always mix those two shades together to create this perfect, like kind of like corally bubblegum pink.
Beautiful.
And thus, the creation
shade
of Bubba.
Yeah.
So every collab has had a very cool and authentic story.
And that's why it works, I guess, because it's coming from the right place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the goal is with a product, like you want the creator and the influencer to be incredibly passionate about it. As a brand and someone who works in like also the back end and the operation side of things, we're always very, strict about timelines.
Sure.
Because we're like, okay, well, we need a launch here. So we need the product to be approved. And obviously influencers, they're creative, right? So like, well, if it's not perfect, we cannot launch it. And we're like,
and you're like, no,
it.
this is it.
We understand.
Yeah.
And we want it to be perfect. We want the creators to launch something and feel like, wow, like I'm obsessed with this. I want my community to be obsessed with it, because otherwise it comes through.
Because the more they storytell about it and the more they talk about it to their audiences is hopefully going to then translate to sales and translate to conversion and new customers and,
Exactly.
all that.
Exactly.
Right.
So yeah, it's definitely interesting. We definitely don't do it at a drop of a hat. As I mentioned, we had worked with all of these creators for many years. And it's funny, it just so happens that all of our creators that we've done these partnerships with have been Canadian.
I was going to say, because they're all Canadian, which is great. Have you thought about doing one with an American? Or it's kind of nice that it's all been Canadian creators, actually.
And it's funny because I don't even think, maybe subconsciously, but it's not, it wasn't super intentional that like, oh, they must be Canadian.
No, it just has worked out that way.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that also goes back to it's like the DNA and the foundation of the brand, because you guys are Canadian. There is this like deep love affair that Canadians have with Nudestix for that reason. Like there's just something when it's, it's founded in Canada. People feel good about that.
Yeah. It's almost like our comfort zone.
Totally.
Like, yeah.
So talk a little bit about how you created that new, I guess you'd call it revenue model or business model for influencers, because I feel like it is very unique. Like that's not really something that brands are necessarily offering creators is like, hey, come in with us. We're going to give you the tools to come into the kitchen. Like you said, we're going to give you the tools to find your perfect shade that you can then speak to your audience. And then also whatever it is, give you back end or give you affiliate or whatever that business model might look like. But how did you kind of come up with that? Or was it truly just organic with Alana being the first one and being like, okay, you're my friend, let's work this out?
Yeah.
What did that look like? And it's nice because now you've been able to almost like continue that business model with other people.
Yeah. I mean, since day one, when we launched Nudestix, I remember we partnered with Ipsy.
Yeah.
And they were at the time kind of like this creator house where they would incubate creators, they would create content, they would produce content for creators.
Okay.
But then they also had obviously like the Ipsy boxes and whatnot. And so they had a roster of creators at the time. And we actually had our first ever palette that we called the Creator Palette. And it was 6 creators. This was like 2015.
Oh, wow. Early doors.
Really early. And we, at the time, understood that we were a small brand.
Mm-hmm.
We really didn't have any influence like on our owned platforms. And we needed to leverage this new kind of medium, new media. And so that was our first ever launch. And that was more of like a pay to play situation. But after that, there was a ton of learnings around like, wait a second, like creators are so passionate, like beauty creators are so passionate about beauty, obviously, but then when they develop something and go through that process themselves, there's this different level of investment
for sure,
and excitement. Because it's theirs, right?
Yeah.
Like Alana will still tell you like Picante is her baby.
Yeah.
Like she's on vacation right now in Mexico.
Using it, I'm
using
sure.
it. She's like in all orange. She's like, I'm in my Picante era.
So cute.
And I think that's the goal, right? Like you don't want this like one time kind of hit because as we know, it needs to be consistent, needs to be gradual over time.
Yeah.
But the goal is for them to always love the product and continue to talk about it.
And is there something about launching those specific SKUs that has surprised you? Like whether in terms of like conversion or back end or like, has there been learnings on that side of things?
Yeah, I definitely think the biggest surprise is there's not typically like an instant conversion. I do think that some creators convert more than others and some creators provide you with a broader reach.
Yeah.
So there's
brand awareness or whatever those things are.
Exactly. So there's we call them like key performance indicators that we kind of look at when working with creators. There's also this like retailer buy-in. So we call it open to buy, which is a wholesale model. When you work with retailers, it's the amount of product that they buy from you, whether it's an existing product or a new product. And the goal is you want them to buy a lot of product.
Right. So did they get excited? Yes. Okay. So that's like a big plus.
Yes, it is.
Right.
It's a big plus.
Yeah.
So like what we'll typically do is like, which is mutually beneficial for the creator as well, right? So if it's like a Kevin or a Glamzilla, we'll say we have this opportunity to launch not only your product, but also give you exposure and have you, come or even just have your visuals in markets globally.
Which is incredible.
Yeah.
Like to have your face in every Sephora or every like cart is like, yeah, you can't buy that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's something that we always pitch to our retailers. And it also for the retailers like, oh, well, we want something exclusive. We want something new, exciting. And so it's a fun way to also focus on, have them buy into a category that's existing, something that's net new, because any like net new investment, let's call it a new innovation, like Stacks as an example, that was a completely new product, completely new formula, completely new package. That is an incredibly expensive launch because it's an entirely new innovation versus, and the minimum order quantities are quite high.
Right.
Versus like a shade extension where you can play around with, it's probably the same packaging, same formula, but the shade is different.
Easier.
So it's easier
and less expensive, less barrier to entry. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
and you have to be careful like as a small brand because these new innovations can be very risky.
Right.
Because like we said, sometimes
you still
they
have
hit.
minimums.
You still have minimums, and then what happens if the product doesn't hit?
Right, and you're like, I've got a lot of blush.
You have a lot of inventory, and you're like, okay, well, we need to figure out something to do with this.
Right.
So that's why it is a little bit of a safer bet, but then also creates excitement because it is a new shade and a creator developed it themselves and worked really passionately alongside you to do it. So
That also, though, gives me a bit more insight into why maybe a lot of brands don't do it, because it is like no matter what you are associating risk. You are putting up brand dollars to like bring something to life. You are also pinning your brand to another person's brand, which inherently also has risks. So it's like I get it. Like that is like there's perks, but there's also potential risks
1,000%,
associated.
1,000%. To your last question about like what do you need to know when it comes to building your brand or being a founder is like you need to be comfortable with risk.
Right.
Like you need to be comfortable with like this might not hit or we might lose money here. How do we?
Yeah.
So I think that's also, it's not all like rainbows and butterflies, and like launching a business and building a brand is literally like this.
This is my new thing. We work in stock, guys. We work in the stock market. It's up, we're down, we're up, we're down. Like that is just
1,000%.
the creative entrepreneurial life.
Yeah. If it's not a safe, there is nothing safe about this. It's not a safe thing, but I do think that's why they're very calculated risks. They're very calculated bets when we work with these creators, and we know how they could perform because we've partnered with them for 2-3 years. So we understand their impact and what they can do.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You set expectations, so it works. Okay. All right. Let's talk a little bit about Sofia Richie. This was like the wedding of the century. It was all over TikTok. It was like one of the most talked about weddings. Talk a little bit about how the partnership with Sofia came to be, and then also the integration with the wedding. Was that an accident? Did you know she was going to use the product on the day? How did this all come into place?
So we started partnering with Sofia in, I want to say it was fall of 2022. And at that time, we were looking for this celebrity ambassador. And Sofia was also looking to get into the beauty space. She is like she has the most beautiful skin. She is stunning. She is a true minimalist at heart when it comes to even just her overall aesthetic, her makeup, her fashion style as well. And we met with her when we were in LA, and there was just like an instant kind of synergy of brands. And we, decided to come together as partners, and she came on as our nude beauty director and really working with us just overall on brand positioning and working on some lines outside of makeup.
Very cool.
Which was nude body.
Yeah.
And we knew she was getting married, but obviously with any celebrity marriage or wedding, you just don't know like what's going to go viral, what people are going to care about.
But also I think you guys were early adopters in her cool factor, because I think this was just as she was kind of exploding and building. Like I don't think she was. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Her brand was also building at the same time, which is also an amazing synergy because it's just like happening very organically. And like then the wedding obviously went mega viral and completely exploded. And the internet was like, oh my God, Sofia Richie.
Yeah, no, it was incredible. And it was actually a ton of foresight by a good friend of mine who's also an advisor at the time for us. Her name is Maggie Sellers.
Cool.
And she has a brand called Hot Smart Rich.
Ooh, cool.
She's awesome. And she was like, Taylor, like, I need to introduce you. Like, she is perfect for Nudestix.
Wow.
I think she's going to, I think there's something here. Like, so she really had a ton of
the intuition
for sure.
Amazing.
And so, so Sofia, she was obviously on social media, but she did not have TikTok at the time. And so we really worked with her on like her social content was her Instagram content, and she wasn't really talking or posting videos. It was really just like static imagery.
Crazy.
And then her wedding came about, and I think her team, her manager did a really incredible job working with Sofia. And obviously Sofia had to be open to it as well.
Yeah.
To really like give the world a behind the scenes of like what it was like putting her wedding together and the day of, and the makeup and just like the overall design and her looks. And they did an excellent job at putting all of it together. And I remember speaking to her manager at the time, and her manager reached out and she was like, listen, Patty's doing Sofia's makeup. We cannot guarantee that Patty uses any Nudestix product.
Yeah.
Patty is a Chanel artist.
Fair.
But I really want Nudestix to be there.
Yeah.
So we're like, great.
And you're like, yeah, no worries.
We're like, get her everything.
We got you. Yeah.
We sent her all of the product, and we found out Patty used Nudestix on Sofia when like the rest of the world did.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So
you're like, thank you, Patty.
We're like, thank you, Patty. Sofia's team. I know, also Sofia is an investor. So I know that she genuinely, not only did she genuinely love the brand, but I do think that there was like this element of like, okay, like Nudestix is, she has this sense of like, like pride and ownership
For
of like this
sure.
brand.
Yeah.
And also what was so authentic about it is when you get, I mean, I'm almost there, but not there yet. But like on your wedding day, you're going to use products that you love.
Of course.
Right? Like
you want to feel like you, just an elevated version.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's very much Sofia. Like on her wedding day, she just wanted to look like her. She wanted to look back on photos and say, I recognize that person. I look like myself. And she did.
Stunning.
And Nudestix just was a part of that. And just to be a part of that day was incredible. And
wow.
And that really just that went viral. Like it was insane.
And how do you guys react as a brand from that moment? Because like, how is that a brand lift for you guys? Like on the back end, are you like, okay, we see it, we see that, like, is that like a conversion moment or an aha moment or like a wow, celebrities do have clout kind of moment? Like what was that for you guys?
I think there were so many elements of that really made the moment be as viral as it was. Like obviously just the overall, like she really led the quiet luxury trend. I think she almost was for the millennials because we grew up with like the Kardashians,
totally,
right? Who I wouldn't say are quiet luxury,
no,
right? Or like
quite the opposite.
Quite the opposite. Yeah. And then you had this like modern millennial, call her more Gen Z, I would say.
Yeah,
she was modest. Yeah. She was elegant.
Yeah.
And she was confident.
Totally.
And I think that was really aspirational for a lot of people who maybe felt alienated by this kind of like Kardashian
like more
look.
is more.
Exactly.
Like she was like this like diluted chic, like not trying, very cool girl.
Yes.
But then like also clean, like clean beauty. Like I don't know, there were so many categories that she was kind of leaning on.
I think it was refreshing. Like it was really refreshing to see.
That's a good way to put it.
She like would go on camera. Like I remember her video with Vogue when she was doing her whole like dress try on, and like I think she was wearing like no makeup. Her hair was like slicked back. Like she's just like really real.
Love.
And so I think that was like this. It was not just. It was the perfect like. I mean, obviously very aspirational because she got married in this insane hotel in France.
Location,
and beautiful location. Everything was stunning about it. But there was also this element of relatability about it for like the everyday woman. And so that was that was one piece of it. But then obviously kind of like between traditional media getting, you know, their hands on it and then social media and then her having her TikTok and going on and talking about it was like
that's 360.
That was 360, but like in the most
without trying
organic way possible. Like you could
not pay for that.
You could not pay for that. Yeah. It was perfect and
the perfect storm.
Yeah. So it was super impactful and very genuine. And I think, you know, we just were super appreciative of like the integration and
very iconic. Love that. Okay, we'll end this episode. It feels like we've barely covered the surface, but thank you so much. And we'll end on some quick fire questions.
Okay.
All right. Bold brow or bold lip?
Bold brow.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're a brow girl. It has to be bold brow.
Yeah.
Bold brow. One skincare step you never skip.
Cleanse.
Okay. I thought you were gonna say sunscreen. I feel like you're a big sunscreen girly.
I'm a big sunscreen girly, but
get that skin clean first.
Clean your skin. Like it doesn't matter if you went out, you get home at like 3 o'clock in the morning. But sunscreen's also really good.
Okay, so both. Cleanse and sunscreen.
Cleanse and SPF.
Cleanse and SPF. What is your Desert Island Nudestix beauty product?
SPF, our Nude Screen Daily Mineral Veil, or our Nudie, because it's your eye cheek lip and I can just throw it on.
True, that could do everything.
Everything.
Now she immediately has like 2.
Yeah.
Okay. Cream blush or powder blush?
Cream.
Obviously.
Always.
Also, that's what creates the
glow.
The glow. I know people always say that to me. Like, what are you wearing like on top? I'm like, Nudestix.
Yeah.
Glow.
Yeah.
First beauty product you ever bought?
Oof. I think it was like a Liz Watier like green eyeliner or something.
Throwback, yeah.
Yeah,
I was
at
thinking
Shoppers.
Mine must have been like some sort of like Maybelline mascara.
Oh yeah, maybe it was the
or like the L'Oreal iconic mascara.
Yeah. The better, what was it called? The Better Lash or something?
I don't remember. There was a telescopic one that I loved. It's all the stuff that you find in your mom's, although you would have had a great collection to pull from in your mom's makeup. Like I would be always pulling like.
We'd Cover FX and MAC.
Right.
But I felt like MAC was like, it was too much color for me and Cover FX was too heavy.
Yeah. So you were looking for Nudestix even back then. Signature scent right now.
Signature scent. I love I'm in between.
Okay.
Taunt by Deadcool.
Gorgeous. Deadcool. I've heard so much about this brand. Okay, cool.
Yeah. The founder is amazing. Her name's Karina.
Whoa.
And just amazing scents. I love like muskier scents. I don't like super sweet or fruity or sweet or fruity scents. So I would say Taunt. And then there's also Thé Noir from Le Labo, which I love. And then vanilla, what was it? Vanilla something by Fleur.
Oh, I'm not sure. I'm unfamiliar with that one.
It was going viral.
What are you going to wear on your wedding
point.
day?
I have to figure that out.
Yeah, that's a big thing. The scent memory.
I know.
Le Labo, just for me, it's always. It's just Le Labo
it's a
is
good
the
every
one.
day.
It's a great, like, But you're right, on a wedding day, you almost want something special, but then not too special because you don't want to smell different.
Yeah, like what if I smell like, what if he like smells me? He's like, this is like, what are you wearing? This is disgusting.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You have to like smell like you, but then also, that's tough. Wedding day perfume.
Yeah.
Okay, do you apply foundation with your brush, sponge, or fingertips? I feel like I know the answer to this one.
Fingers.
Yeah, I know. But you're like different. Like I don't know if I could do all fingers, but it is better.
It depends.
It's so natural.
Right. Like if you're doing a fuller glam, then you're going to need a brush.
Yeah.
But if you're like, oh, I'm just like swiping on a little bit of blush on top of my SPF. Like today,
fingers.
I like ran out of the house and I was like, oh, crap, I'm not wearing mascara. Great. Like I'm on camera. But I think like with fingers, it's just like the product just melts into the skin really nicely.
It really, really does. Skincare or makeup, if you could only choose one, which would you choose? This is so hard.
That's so hard. Makeup that has skincare.
That's a good answer. That's a good answer. It's like both, but like makeup that has skincare. Which Nudestix does. What beauty trend are you secretly obsessed with right now?
I'm like, this is not like the most up-to-date trend. I would say bronzing, one.
What's bronzing?
Don't know bronzing.
No.
Okay, so bronzing is the art of combining bronzer and blush in one product. So like our shade Sunkissed as an example, that's a bronzer.
Bronzer.
Yes.
Okay.
So you don't need to use both. So it's shades like kind of like these like reddy brown tones or corally brown tones that kind of give you this like just been kissed by the sun look. So I love a good bronze. And then underpainting is like a core Mary Phillips trend that she's taught the world, but like also she would do I remember when we collabed with her and she'd do my makeup and it was, you kind of do everything in reverse. So instead of doing like your foundation and then your bronzer and then your blush and everything, you do like your bronzer, your sculpt, put your foundation on top.
Crazy.
And then you can top off with some stuff, but like everything just blends in seamlessly.
And when you have someone like Mary do your glam, do you feel instantly more beautiful? No, like, do you feel like, do you feel like instantly like, oh wow, I should do my makeup that way? Like, do you feel like it looks,
1,000%.
Okay, so like more natural, more elevated, more chic?
Because like also if you're in a rush, like sometimes like you might notice, oh, like I didn't blend my bronzer or my contour and I feel like I have like stripes on my face.
Yes.
Whereas if you do it first and then you apply, I don't love to apply, I mean, I don't really use full coverage foundation, but like a tinted foundation or like a lighter coverage, use it on top. And then you also kind of diffuse like any of those harsh lines and everything just blends.
Looks gorgeous.
It
you
looks
look
gorgeous.
great in 6K.
Yeah, exactly. You'll look great anywhere.
I love that.
Yeah.
Best beauty tip you've ever received. I'm sure it probably came from your mom.
Best beauty tip.
Or maybe not. Maybe Mary Phillips. Maybe that was it.
I have one from Mary Phillips. But my mom, I think our parents came from the era of like over plucking and over tweezing their brows.
Totally the 90s brow.
Yeah. So my mom was always like, do not touch your brows.
Good.
That was
tip.
like the best tip I would say.
That's really good. Go to I'm running late makeup hack. I feel like this is just the answer to be like
Nudestix.
Everything Nudestix.
Honestly, probably my nudies. Like I just take the one product and eyes, cheeks, lips, and I'm done. We're good.
That's so good.
Yeah.
And the final question of the day: what is your current beauty ick? If you have one.
My beauty ick. I feel like we're kind of we're almost taking a step back a little bit. We're
reverting back to Instagram makeup. Yes. Have you been seeing this all over TikTok? I know.
And it's making me like, freak
out a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, trends always, I feel like there's always like this 10 to 15 year like cycle of trends. Yeah.
But I can't have like the liquid liner come back in full force. Like I will freak out. I will freak out.
It's not, I'm like, no. And then also, I don't know if this was like as relevant to like right now, but I remember like a few months ago, it was like all these like younger Gen Z or like Gen Alphas that were like the underbags were trending.
Oh God.
So they were like
come on.
creating underbags on themselves. And I was like, oh, well, we
can't.
don't need to do this because I can just
Also,
walk out of the house there.
Just while I'm on the topic, another ick that really bothers me is when Gen Z uses like really active products when they have like
Yes.
baby skin.
Like retinol and
Please no.
Yeah.
Please no.
That's a
Problem.
very big topic of conversation right now. Like the Glow Recipe founders actually just did an amazing video on
No
this.
way.
Where they were like,
I gotta see this.
Yeah, they were like, although our product packaging is really pretty and cute, and
because it feels like Lego, so they are like playing games with it, and
and they're like, our products are effective and very,
can be
performance
dangerous.
driven and are safe, but we do not recommend like if you're really young using any super active product. And I thought that was awesome for them because I think there's a lot of brands that have been trying to like
they capitalize
to
on
Gen
it. 100%. 100%.
when their products aren't safe.
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah.
Taylor Frankel, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
Plug socials, tell everyone where they can buy and find all of their nudies and Nudestix.
Well, nudestix.com. And then if you want to go into store shoppers here in Canada.
Beautiful.
I don't know if you have a lot of US viewers.
Yeah.
So if you're in the
Canada.
US, you can shop at Ulta, Sephora, and then you can follow Nudestix at Nudestix. And you can follow me at Taylor_Frankel.
Yes.
And
she's going to be the next Sofia Richie wedding. So definitely follow along.
That would be nice. That'd
right?
be awesome.
Just pop off, baby. All right. Thank you so much, guys. See you in the next episode. I love you. Mean it. Bye.
So good.
Thank you so much.
You're incredible.
Oh,
like, you're
my
so
God.
nice.
Oh.